and to see what was possible instead of like rushing straight into one. Even though there was quite a big break between those two albums. I think we should have waited more.
A couple of years.
Yeah, well maybe we should have waited for more years, you know, to see what would happen and have a break, a creative break. Because like I say, Taking the World by Storm, in my opinion, is such an extraordinary album on many levels. It's like how do you top it? How do you beat it? You can't go bigger. You know, it's so big and so huge and so multi-tracked. It's got all the best combinations of what we've done before in the past. It's got some of the best writing on there. And a track like Time Has Come, the last track on the album, that 11-minute epic.
Yeah,
for me, that was my swan song. It's like, right, you know, I'll write this song. And it's going to be huge. It's going to be big. It's going to go on forever. And you know, and Dave wrote the lyrics and wrote the vocal. I had an original vocal line, and then Dave changed the vocal line. You know, and wrote this brilliant, beautiful vocal line, fabulous lyrics over it. And it was very, again, deeply personal, and the ghosts of Mal's in there. And the ghosts of the past, and all the aspirations of what it is to be a creative person, and you know, some fabulous lines in there, like, you know, playing in the empty room, still the dream lives on. Some wonderful line, and they were all real. They were all true. You know, that was a reality of the situation. And sang in such an impassioned, heartfelt performance. And for me, you know, that at the end of that album, that's it. We've done it.
Okay.
I can pack my bags and leave. That's it. There's nowhere else to go. But we.
Like you told me, he's written those emotional lyrics on Time Has Come.
Yeah.
It was that emotional on the hemispheres and the BSA.
Exactly,
when he laid down the vocal track.
Yeah. Great lyric writer. And I think when he really goes deep down into his own thoughts, he comes out with some brilliant lines. But there's always been this dichotomy with Demon. One is, you know, the desire to do something really new and unique and interesting, and push boundaries, and then the other one is to make money in the industry, throw some commerciality in there, and pander to the past. You know, and I think though that's the problem. That was always the problem with the band. A good example of that is the name Demon itself and the logo Demon. That, you know, that it's quite clearly dictates a certain genre, a certain style, which belongs to the first two albums. Really. Not even The Plague, really. No. It certainly belongs to the first two albums. And then to carry on with that name and that logo on British Standard Approved and moving into a completely different genre of music, albeit still using heavy metal influences. For me, it just, well, I mean, back then it just didn't work, you know, and it wasn't just me who thought that, lots of other people thought it. And even now, in press reviews, people still cite the name Demon. It's like, well, that was not a good idea. It wasn't particularly a good idea to have a name Demon, what, you know, and I think that held us back a lot, you know, and effectively there was always two bands, and it's quite interesting now how Demon, the current Demon now, that are playing and touring now, and have just released out their last album, Unbroken. They've gone backwards, in my opinion. You know, they've kind of, it's almost like a pastiche, and they've gone backwards to The Unexpected Guest. And they're celebrating that, which is fine, which is great, which is fair enough, but it also kind of speaks volumes of where, you know, there was effectively two bands. One was still very, very much in that new wave of British heavy metal vein, and then there was my idea of my band, and that was a Mal's band, which was experimenting with new forms and doing something really unique and quite different, and going down the progressive rock route, and yet doing something really interesting with it. I don't think there was many bands which they can say have actually straddled both of those genres and done them equally well, really, you know. I don't think there's many bands that can say that.
No.
But of course that makes problems, because it confuses the audience, it confuses the press, you know. And a lot of people didn't buy our progressive rock albums because they thought that it was going to be new wave British heavy metal, and it was going to sound like The Unexpected Guest, and they didn't want that. and then the Unexpected Guest people thought they were going to get the Unexpected Guest again, and that kind of genre, or the Plague, and they ended up with British Standard Approved and didn't like that. So you ended up having, you weren't pleasing anybody, really.
No,
So it was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I would have changed the name. I would have changed it. At British Standard Approved, that point, you've got a completely different band doing a completely different, moving into a completely different territory.
Yeah.
I would have changed the band. Now I don't think it would have mattered so much. Now I think you can probably have a name and get away with that.
Yeah.
Because we live in postmodern times where people put lots of different meaning onto one particular thing, So back then, everything was very, very much pigeonholed, and you were pigeonholed by the music press. Like we were looking earlier at some of the memorabilia I've been showing you for the DDR website.
Yeah.
And so British Standard Approved is in a heavy metal album chart.
Yeah.
Why the hell it's in a heavy metal album chart?
Because of the name.
It's because of the name.
Yeah.
It's not a heavy metal album. It's got absolutely nothing to do with heavy metal.
No.
But the name has, and so it's pigeonholed because nobody knows where to put it. It's in a completely different genre, but it's shoehorned into heavy metal. It's not a heavy metal album.
No.
So again, that kind of confusion is not great for new fans, and it's certainly not great for old fans, and it's certainly not great for album sales. So I think that was one of the definingly problematic issues for the band, was the name.
Okay, yeah.
And the logo.
Yeah.
Like I say, now it doesn't matter so much, I don't think, because people are a lot more accepting.
Yeah.
And like you can impose your own meaning onto a certain name and a certain word, and that's quite accepted now. But back then, you were either a mod, you were either a rocker, you were punk.
Yeah.
You like pop music and you like
expected.
disco, and you didn't really jump between different genres and different, and so you expected a certain thing, and so did the press.
Yeah.
So you had to really kind of pander to that idea.
If people hear the music now, it's like they don't care about the name. It's
Well,
like,
it still
this
happens.
is great music.
It still happens now. I mean, I blog. In fact, I blogged a Facebook group 2 nights ago, and it's a huge progressive rock site. And what was the track that I put on? Oh, it was Time Has Come. It was Time Has Come, and I wrote, check out this, progressive, and I wrote progressive rock track on, which is what it is. And immediately I got replies from people who hadn't even heard it, saying that this isn't progressive rock, it's Demon. So they wouldn't even listen to it because of the name Demon. They wouldn't even listen to it. They wouldn't even press the play button.
They wouldn't.
No, but then when I convinced them that they should listen to the play button, then they were completely and utterly blown away by the music, and they loved it.
Yeah.
But initially they wouldn't know. And this is a true story. I mean, this is not something I'm making up to prove a point. This is an absolutely true story, and it's still happening now in 2013. Ironically, after I've just said it really doesn't matter too much about the name, but it just goes to show you just how important a name is, just how important an image is, and just how important a logo is. And that's the first thing that people see and latch onto. That's a shop window.
Yeah.
And if you're selling shoes, and you're advertising them as handbags, people are going to get confused, and that's what happened. That's a really kind of simple analogy that I can give to the Demon name. The music changed, the band changed, but the image and the name didn't.
No. Complex.
Too complex.
Yeah, it's
too
complex.
Yeah. But then again, you've got issues. Then you've got an established band with an established name. So what do? You kind of so what you're effectively doing is you're effectively killing that band.
Yeah.
And you're effectively starting again.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that then that the fans are going to come along with you. So the real issue is beyond the name. The real issue is the fact that you've chosen to change direction. That's really the biggest issue, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what the band chose to do, because you cannot compare British Standard Approved to Night of the Demon. Or the Unexpected Guest. They're two completely different bands.
Unexpected Guest with what album did you say?
You've got a British Standard Approved.
Yeah, no, it's too
impossible.
different.
It's effectively a different band
No,
playing completely
yeah.
different music.
Yeah. But in my opinion, it's about 2 years between those albums, and I think it's a great what do you call it, development, furthering. I think it was really interesting.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Me,
but I think,
personally.
but the problem was, I mean, I remember in interviews, Dave used to kind of keep quoting Pink Floyd, and he would say, "Oh well, it didn't matter with Pink Floyd. You know, Pink Floyd were a psychedelic band with Sid Barrett, and they were in the '60s, and then we turned into this massive concept album band." But it's not really a very, very good choice of band to use and a very good name to use. Pink Floyd is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It's a completely meaningless name. If you delve into how the Pink Floyd name was created, it was Sid Barrett taking two jazz players, two famous old blues players. I can't quite remember now. And taking their names and putting them together, and that's how the name developed. It doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's completely meaningless.
Pink Floyd.
And yet it's interesting. It's completely unique, and that's probably the most important point. It's completely original and totally unique. The word demon isn't. The word demon means exactly what it says on the tin. It is a demon. It is a satanic creature or mythological creature from religious iconography, and it is a demon. And then on top of that, the band used to go out dressed in an exorcist costume, burst out of a grave with crucifixes, playing heavy metal music with a heavy metal logo, and a guy wearing a fucking devil's mask. It is a demon. You know, that means something. You cannot compare that with Pink Floyd. It's just it's a ludicrous, preposterous kind of comparison. But he used to do that all the time, and I think he didn't really think about it really.
Was it Dave?
And it was Dave. Yeah, and he was trying to like justify that's why we kept the name. It's like, well, Pink Floyd did it, so we can. And it's like, well, no, no. Intellectually, as an argument, that doesn't stand up. So yeah, in my opinion, it was like, no, let's get rid of it. You've got to make a choice. You have chosen. It's not my choice. You have chosen to create this album, British Standard Approved. You have chosen to completely change direction. You've got new band members in. You've got new writers, new arrangers coming in. You've got me coming in, new influences. Okay, say right. Okay, it was great. We've done the new wave of British heavy metal. New wave of British heavy metal was kind of like, you know, it was kind of it had reached its pinnacle anyway by then. It had reached its peak by then. You know, all big bands were taking off, like Iron Maiden and all those bands. You know, were taking off, in Saxon. Were taking off and becoming like really famous worldwide. But they played the game. They did exactly what it said on the tin. They had the logo, you knew what to expect, you went to the gig, you had the image, everybody wore the leathers, everybody grew the hair, everybody knew exactly what you needed to, what kind of membership card you needed to have to join the club. And you knew exactly what you were going to expect. That didn't happen with Demon, because they confused it, they just muddied the issue. You know. So that's my take on it. And it's really, really interesting to see what's happened now in 2013, and what they've done is they've reverted back to that, to those first two albums. They've reverted back to like a nod and a wink, but it's almost a pastiche of their earlier kind of two albums. So the Unbroken logo, for example, it's got the pointed Gothic font on there, which typifies heavy metal. They're playing the Swedish Rock Festival, which typifies heavy metal. The Origins typifies heavy metal. All the other bands typify heavy metal. It's not progressive rock. It's gone back to that point. Now that's fine and that's great. But what you're doing is then you're not moving forward in any way whatsoever.
No,
you are literally saying, right, we are this. This is what we do, and let's go back and just celebrate it and just go round and round and round and round in circles. They might take us all by surprise. Who knows? They might write the next Dark Side of the Moon. I doubt it, but they might.
I think it's an okay album. It's not sounding rubbish.
I think it's got a great production on it. There's some really nice writing on there. There's some really nice songs on there. there's some great performances on there, but it doesn't surprise me.
No,
it doesn't.
It's like
it doesn't want me to think, oh yeah, that's a great album, I want to listen to it again.
no.
You know, but I can imagine for for a particular kind of audience that go to those festivals, go to the Swedish Rock Festival, and want to relive those glory days, that they would have a wonderful time going to the gig, having a fantastic time, and reliving the past. And for me, that's what that is about. It's about reliving the past.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's about a nostalgic. Let's kind of like, okay, well, that wasn't successful. The progressive side wasn't successful, so let's go back to form and let's do what we know, which is fine. But again, it's a bit like it's a bit like going home, I suppose. Really, it's like you've gone out on a great adventure and you're thinking, right, you know what, I've had enough. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
Yeah.
But then effectively you close the door, don't you? And that's it. That's the end of it, really.
No, yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen next. See, interestingly enough, I thought Spaced Out Monkey was a great album.
Yeah, I was just coming to that.
Yeah, and it was really, really underrated. And you go onto the Demon website now, and it's right down the bottom of the pile as far. And I can't understand that. I think it's an absolutely brilliant album. In fact, I think it's
so
one
too.
of the best.
Yeah.
I think it's the best album since Taking the World by Storm.
Absolutely, yes. My opinion too.
As an album, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Great writing on it, fabulous. Duncan Hansel's keyboard work, synthesizer work on there. It's fabulous, and they've obviously said, right, yeah, we're going to kind of let's go down that progression. And again, it's kind of been rejected by the fans, which makes me think, well, okay, so the fans are basically saying, we don't want that. We don't want British Standard approved. We don't want this. What we want is we want Unexpected Guest. So then the band have said, right, okay, we'll give you Unexpected Guest.
That was the first album after the break, I think. The Spaced Out Monkey.
Yeah, great album.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
I like that very much.
Yeah.
I would put that as a maybe third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent album. And I really enjoy listening to it, and it's got some great ideas on there, and it's got some cheeky nods and winks on there to me, which I quite enjoy. And it's got a big production on there. It's got a few fillers on there. It's not got some of the best writing, but as an album, it really holds together. It's a concept album. It's got a lovely fluid flow through it, and I take my hat off to him. And I personally would have been proud to have played on one album.
Yeah,
and put my name on it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You hear when you listen to an album, is this interesting, or is it not? I can tell you, when I listen to the Spaced Out Monkey, this is an interesting. This is a good Demon album.
Yeah, and it's got nods and winks to the Plague as well. It's very, very good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So, but the direction which has been taken now, I don't know whether it's going to be a blip, or I don't know whether we're going to kind of carry on and bring out something a bit more epic. I don't know, because quite clearly there is a big audience out there for progressive rock and progressive metal, but the problem is they just don't know of Demon's progressive work, because they think that it's not a progressive rock band. They think it's a heavy metal band, new wave British heavy metal band, so they won't even listen to it. But the ones that do listen to it, and the ones that are in the know, they are absolutely crying out for more of that. And I know that there is a big audience for it there.
The progressive rock.
Yeah, and that's where the Demon Dude's Revenge kind of comes in. And that's where I was thinking, right, you can take all these elements. You can take elements from the new wave of British heavy metal, but now these days it's more interesting to do something new and interesting. There's no reason why you can't combine all these different elements together. There's no reason why you can't combine new wave of British heavy metal and with progressive rock, and with, I throw in pop music, I throw in, there's funk in there, there's punk in there, there's cheesy 1970s disco in there.
In what album?
In the DDR
stuff,
Yeah. There's experimental avant-garde soundscapes in there from kind of Stockhausen. There's classical influences in there. In the new album, there's folk music in there. There's sea shanties. There's bits sound like Genesis, and it's really interesting. And there's Pink Floyd sections in there, and then there's heavy metal section, really big. And there's progressive metal. There's bits that sound like Tool in there. There's bits that sound like Sigur Rós, and to bring all these elements together. And what's interesting, once you start fusing them together, you create this kind of Frankenstein's monster, and then you give it life, and then it takes on a life of its own. So then it turns into something new, it takes on its own, you give birth to this kind of new personality, and then it takes a life on its own, and then you start bringing new fans in. But the interesting thing is you also return the old fans. You say, oh yeah, I recognise that.
Yeah.
And I recognise that. And that bit sounds like that, and that bit sounds... And that's great, because then you've got something for everybody then.
Yeah.
And the idea of Demon Dude's Revenge albums was to make something that sounded like a compilation tape that we all used to make from our generation. We used to take our records out, and we used to make compilation tapes, take our favourite tracks, and make this big. And that's what Demon Dude's Revenge is. That's why every track sounds different, and there's different musicians. So you got like a different band from one track to another. And if you listen carefully, you can hear all the sound effects. You can hear needles going on, people playing vinyls, people moving around the room. Well, that's what's going on. That's the adolescent fantasy. Somebody's reminiscing over their record collection, you know. And that's represented in the music that you're listening to on the Demon Dude's Revenge album. You are effectively listening to the compilation tape that person is making, and that's what it is. It's a Frankenstein's monster. It's all cobbled together, and each track is a Frankenstein's monster, all cobbled together from different sections. And cobbled's the wrong word; it makes it sound shit, but it's cobbled. We'll use the word cobbled. Created. It is masterfully created. It's not cobbled, it's masterfully created in the workshop of filthy creation, which again comes from Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein novel. But that's what it is. It's taking all these different elements, you know, and that's great. And I think you can do that these days. It's really, really interesting. And you can also use the name Demon in there, and you can also use the logo Demon, but then you put it in a different context. So you add Dude's Revenge to it, and it turns into something completely new and interesting. And he gets people, what is this? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Now we know this guy used to be in the band Demon.
Yeah.
What was that? What's that about?
Yeah.
So there was another dimension. That was my idea for British Standard Approved. That's how I thought we could have actually, you know, and beyond British Standard Approved.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I thought the band should have developed.
Yeah.
It's like you know what? We're not selling albums, but we're critically acclaimed. And we're critically acclaimed for doing something new. So do you know what? Fuck it. Let's just get rid of the past. Let's really go for it. Let's really, really go for it. Let's make up a silly name like Pink Floyd, and let's just really go for it.
From BSA.
Yeah, and let's just do what we want. Let's just screw the press.
Yeah.
Let's stop pandering to those tossers in Kerrang. Sorry. Let's start. Yeah, those tossers in let's stop pandering to those tossers in the music press. Let's stop pretending that the past still exists, and let's just do it. Let's just be ourselves. That's what all those great successful bands did.
Yeah.
That became huge. You do it by you do it by being unique, and you do it by being yourselves. You don't do it by just keep going backwards and pretending to be something that's gone.
No, if you don't feel it, you should.
You've got to have the passion and the heart.
Yeah.
And you've got to have the intellectual capacity and
that's
and
the right
to
word. Yeah. The passion for it.
Yeah.
If you don't have the passion, it don't come out good.
Yeah.
And I think the buyers of the records feel it, like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
But with the British BSA, I felt like this is one of the best albums.
Yeah.
This is
top. Well, I mean, most people who who I get in contact with, who are the progressive rock fans, the new wave of British heavy metal fans, the vast majority of them that I've spoken to hate it.
They do.
Yeah, they just hate it. They just think it's rubbish.
Strange. Oh.
And I know Neil Ogden put up a blog.
The drummer.
Yeah, the drummer from Demon Now got in contact. He put up a blog, got in contact with me, and he said, "I just think it's crap." And it was like, well, okay, well that's your opinion. I don't particularly think it's a very intelligent one, but that's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But that just goes to prove that you've now got a band which is subordinate to the past. They are entrenched in that kind of. In that kind of, they've just gone backwards because it works. There's an instant canned audience out there. No disrespect to them, but there is an instant audience out there who have that kind of, like, you want to relive the good old days and the glory days. There's still some younger audience that come in as well, but the vast majority of that audience are from that generation. Who are the original new wave of British heavy metal audience. And fair enough to them. But you know, you've got to make a decision. It's like Christ Almighty. You've been going for like God knows how many years.
Yeah.
You've had 30 odd members. You know,
Yeah,
make a decision. What do you want to be? And that's exactly what I was like. When I was 19, 20 years old, and we were arguing about the name of British Standard Approved, and it's like make a decision. What do you want to be?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? And if you want to go this direction, I didn't write British Standard Approved. You know, I didn't create all this idea that the band's going to do this and change this. If you want to make this decision and you want to go in this direction, heading in the new direction, the great quote from British Standard Approved. If that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
then you've got to do it 100%. You can't just kind of like, you know, tie yourself to the cot with a piece of string and then move away from home and then hoping that everything's going to be okay and you can find your way back. You've just got to cut the ties and off you go. Just do it.
Yeah.
Big risk.
Commit to it.
Yeah. You know, but you can't have like one foot in the past and one foot in this new future that you're supposedly heading towards. It just doesn't work, and it didn't.
No.
It didn't work. Obviously it didn't work.